to get to the one spot.
All right, all right, all right. And just like that, we're live.
We are live. How about that?
All right, okay, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to go ahead and play a little bit of the intro. This is a green room type conversation right now. And we'll get
Yeah.
back to the stress-free productivity that is promised by a TED Talker.
Did you feel?
Yeah, sorry for cutting you off there.
Did you feel less stress nursing your wounds? Like you're so focused on it. You're like so focused on it that you didn't have.
Yeah,
You're optimized. You were fully optimized.
Yeah,
meaningful focus.
Just like with everything, when you injure it, then you realize how useful it was. Like this whole time, you're like, I didn't know how important that little tendon over there was.
Right.
Now when I sneeze, I feel I feel it over there.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, let's go.
in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What was behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannon could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ike. Click that like button, okay? Click the share button, click the subscribe button if you have not already, and click that bell button twice. We're going to be talking about the concept of stress-free productivity, a book by David Allen, okay, which we have reviewed before, okay, Dr. Thunder. We've actually reviewed his book called Getting Things Done, okay? And if I were to kind of press my memory as to what that book was about, mainly it was about capturing the tasks, right? The things that you have to do. So you have to capture them in terms of like some kind of a list, a calendar, whatever it may be. And then you organize it in a particular way that is kind of efficient, okay? But now he's talking about stress-free productivity. And we're going to see what you think about it, Dr. Thunder. I haven't watched this video before. It's a TED Talk. But how's it going, Dr. Thunder? How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. A lot of stuff going on end of the semester. I submitted my final grades.
Would it be fair to say you're stressed? You're fairly stressed. Are you also
I'm
being
less
productive?
stressed. Right. I'm less stressed now, but so one thing, and progress often means that you're going to go through at least a temporary point or moment of sort of discomfort, and stuff is going to change, and you're kind of figuring out what's going on. We're actually moving into a new School of Music building, state of the art, brand new, beautiful, climate control, all of the modern stuff, and perfectly treated acoustic stuff. It's great, but that means that I got to get all of the stuff from my current office, which is out of there, into the new place. So after I've got a couple more sort of I's to dot and T's to cross for the end of the semester. And when I get done with that, the next focus is going to be to get stuff moved, which is going to be major.
What kind of behaviors do you change in times like this, where, let's say, things are, the activities are ramping up, certain changes are happening, and more things have to be done? And how do you go ahead managing this without and minimizing error? Is there anything you do to change? Do you sleep less? Or what do you do?
I've had some bouts with insomnia, and so I try to be consistent with the sleep. In general, I don't sleep very much. I kind of have I'll kind of have I don't know, I sleep probably about 4.5 hours. I'll have, on the weekend, I'll sleep longer or something, like Saturday morning, unless I have to take my son somewhere, I'll sleep in a little bit more. But as far as like stuff that I do, I mean, pretty regular stuff. It's helpful to have all the stuff actually sort of accounted for some kind of way.
Do you pay
No.
students with extra credit? Do you see what blind guy, his wife, their life says? Shout out to you, by the way. Says pay students with extra credit to help with the move. You exploit them. Isn't that what they're there for?
It's like you're already paying tuition. Here, do some stuff unrelated, and I'll boost your grade. No, I'm not allowed to do that.
You're not allowed. Okay.
And actually, it's.
But you otherwise
a little
would.
tricky. Oh, right. Well, it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky because, you'd have to have. I mean, I hire students to do stuff. I've hired. I had a couple students or former students that I hired to babysit. So it just depends. Just have to be. It's tricky.
I wonder what everybody thinks about the title of this show and the title of this talk, by the way. And again, I'm sure you remember the book, right? Getting Things Done. We did a couple of videos on it, a couple of episodes on it.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's not a bad book. And let me ask you. So I come to you. I'm a salesman. I'm selling you something, Dr. Thunder. Okay. And I say, hey, you know what, Dr. Thunder? I'm here to sell you stress-free productivity. And I say, hey, you know what? Don't. It's like a martial art, Dr. Thunder, that I'm about to sell you. And I'm about to show you how, Dr. Thunder, how you can be in the zone, in the middle of the storm, with the eye of the tiger, taking it down. What sense? What do your instincts tell you? What are your thoughts so far?
Hogwash.
Hogwash comes to mind. Snake oil salesman, perhaps.
No. Sounds. Okay. It's too good to be true.
Sounds too good to be true. Okay, so I wonder what he's going for because I actually haven't watched the video, right? So I wonder what he's going for because obviously he's a smart guy. He wrote a good book on productivity, so he knows what productivity is, right? Based on the book, right? So I wonder what spin he's going for here. It's like a M. Night Shyamalan video or something, where he kind of shows us productivity really me, whatever. And let's see. As you come in, ladies and gentlemen, please click the like button, click the share button. Let's go. Fair use. Do something here about style. Notice how he didn't say his name or anything.
He just gets in and starts talking. Yeah.
Okay, good. So far, have you felt any nothing jarring? You're not angry with him yet, right? So far, he's not doing anything wrong. You don't have anything against his style of presenting himself so far, right?
No.
Okay, I actually like it. I like as you know, I always preach the whole skip all that. My name is James Wesley Jr. III, from South Vermont. Get the hell out of here, James. While facing the possibility of capsizing. No, not that one, right? Okay, cool. So this is another full moon that got slipped into the PowerPoint, perhaps a stock photo. Anyways, so far presented himself well and has gotten us into this Zen place. Okay, we're not so surprised that perhaps this is where he may start. Okay, what do you so we started out obviously you're skeptical. Now he is talking about seeing this moon, okay, in the eye of the storm, being able to see this thing while dealing with this life or death situation, right? The crystallizing of everything and everything becoming clear, your life flashing before you right before you die, all that kind of stuff. Like, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's like it's like the calm before the storm, the eye of the hurricane. All of that. So it just makes you wonder, okay, what's about to happen after this?
Are you going to tell me that somehow you're going to sell me how I can be in the zone 24/7, right? And how I can treat all the chaos, for example, like Dr. Thunder, for example. You're going through the stress of having to move, and you know that after you move, it's going to take you another few months to tweak and retweak. Because you know how it is. You come into a room, you place things one way, in the feng shui and the, and you're an extra tweaker, so you're probably gonna it'll take like 6 configurations to dial it in just right. Okay. And he's saying, hey, you can be in the middle of the storm and watching it all happen, just like Neo. On the one hand, we recognize that zone, okay? But on the other hand, that zone is quite energetically expensive, right? It's not like you just get it, you just stay in the zone 24/7. What do you have to say about that? Like, the zone. He's explaining the zone. We get it. But there is no free lunch, number one. And what do you have to say about the expense of the zone or the stress of the zone?
Yeah. So, there are, in different disciplines, what you're calling the zone might be called by a different name. I've heard musicians talk about, getting into, the space, or maybe martial artists talking about the glow, like, Bruce Leroy. The Last Shogun of Harlem. So there's different disciplines, but all of them, there's a lot of effort involved in cultivating yourself to be able to achieve that moment of clarity. And the moment of clarity is in what contradistinction, right? It's different from your usual experience. That's why we have a name for it, and rather than just like, hey, this is just regular. The zone is something that stands out. It's a different level of consciousness, and frankly, not one that you can maintain for very long.
There you go. So let him continue with this. And Dr. Thunder, before he continues, before we later on pick up, I'll kind of go back a little bit, because he's again reinforcing this idea of the set of circumstances that you're in, kind of clarifying and crystallizing your consciousness, right? Leading you into this special state that you mentioned, and you highlighted the rareness of the state, right? And again, that's why we have a name for it. It's not standard. This is not regular consciousness. This is a heightened state of consciousness. Okay, cool. And he's saying, okay, you can put yourself into these kinds of situations, or these situations produce that kind of state. Now, there's something that I think Game Changer usually says this. Shout out to Game Changer. Okay, that so smart and productive people, okay, are already smart and productive, okay, or let's say they already have ways of gamifying things, ways of strategizing in order to even be more smart and productive, and they play all these games, and then write books about it, but they're never going to be able to teach somebody how to just be smart and productive, because in other words, it's like, this dude is already productive, okay, and then now he just realized, you know what? I find that when as a way of kind of adding an extra bit of stress that helps me to focus a little bit. There's a little bit of augmentation I can do over here, and it's just like, dude, like, that's not actually gonna work, because you're already, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like you already got it. You're already rich. I don't know what the particular kind of analogy, or if Game Changer's point that I'm butchering is coming across here. Am I communicating?
Yeah, I mean, often is the case that people will develop a methodology, an approach to doing something that only works for them because they have they're wired a certain way. They have a particular knack. Let me give you an example of something like this. You don't see these as much anymore, But it seemed like in the 90s there were a lot of these speed reading courses. Right? And me and a buddy of mine, we went to college together, TK Coleman. That's my buddy. We went half in on this speed reading course. And
really?
this guy that obviously just had this natural ability to read at ridiculous speed, he supposedly broke it down to its, sort of basic parts, and said, okay, now do this. Now, and one of the funnier things that, as we were listening to this, he says, don't sound out, the usual stuff, if you're speaking the words in your head, you're slowing down, and then he'd be like, one sentence, one line, like this, like you're supposed to just be knowing what. And the thing is like, okay, you can probably learn how to read faster than you do and be more efficient by not tripping over yourself. But you're not going to develop photographic sort of memory.
Yeah, which is one end of
obviously what this guy had. So he could just look at the pages and he just knew everything that was on there. But that's not something that you can really teach to somebody else. So you have a certain knack, so you develop a program that supposedly is supposed to develop that same ability in others, but it never works that way. Here's one more. Go ahead.
I was just going to highlight, and perhaps you were about to mention, that you've given other examples where people have an issue, a handicap, okay? They're blind in one eye, or they don't have a pinky finger, and then they develop an adaptation around them.
Right.
Okay? Right. They develop an adaptation, a way of playing the guitar with 3 fingers or something like that. And
Django Reinhardt.
Or whatever it may be, and it only works for them, and other people try to play like them, but really, it's like, so these things happen a lot. And in the book industry, especially in this kind of, I write a book, I go to TED Talks and stuff industry, obviously it has to happen, right? Where, okay, I'm now going to go back and find some other little hack that I've found and write about it. Now, for you, Dr. Thunder, whom perhaps may be the most person that these kinds of things may be the most useful for. And I don't know if you also want to say the other example that you wanted to say. Do you want to go ahead and give the other example?
Yeah, let me say this other example. So, perfect pitch, also called absolute pitch. You cannot learn perfect pitch if you're beyond a certain age. It is not possible to learn perfect pitch.
You don't have perfect pitch, do you?
I don't have perfect pitch.
Okay, I think I'm sure I've asked you that before.
Yeah, I don't have perfect pitch. A bit of a tangent. Perfect pitch is not the. It's not the. It's not quite the asset that you think it would be. It's not necessarily the advantage that you think it would be. And in many cases, it's a disadvantage. Because people don't tend to play in tune. And so you'd be aware of what was in tune and that other people were playing out of tune. And in the case of detuning, that's how you can mess somebody with perfect pitch up. You can say, okay, I'm going to tune up a quarter tone. Or let me transpose the keyboard. Okay, that would drive them crazy. But for someone that doesn't have perfect pitch, but that has developed really good relative pitch, and this thing, it's actually on a spectrum. I know you like it when I use that word. It's on a spectrum. Or if you would prefer a hierarchy. I know you like that one. No, but anyhow, it's on a spectrum, and so basically what it is that you have everything from people that have really good relative pitch all the way up to perfect pitch, which is without the need of a frame of reference. You just know what the notes are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, what these programs do is the best thing that they can do is they can teach you how to memorize a pitch, or to use ambient sounds, like lights. There's a ring in lights if you listen very closely, and it's a particular pitch, and
The
it's
fluorescent
consistent.
light has a.
That's right. Or like a 60 cycle hum is a particular pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So you can learn how to hear those noises that are happening all the time around you, and then use that as a frame of reference. But that's not perfect pitch. And neither is memorizing a pitch. That's not perfect pitch, because you are basically trying to learn how to remember a pitch rather than not needing a frame of reference. Okay? Very young children, from the womb up until, I don't know, 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, maybe 6, maybe possibly, they can actually develop perfect pitch. But beyond that age, it is not possible. It has to do with brain chemistry. So, for instance, say, for instance, a person has perfect pitch. They develop this program. Hey, I can teach you perfect pitch too. Right? And they do all these acrobatic feats and stuff, and they're picking out all this crazy stuff. It's like, oh my goodness, how do they know that? They're listening to a muffler on a car down the road, and they're telling you the pitch that the muffler is resonating at. It's a B flat, but it's a little bit flat. I'd say about 5 cents flat. They're doing all that kind of stuff. And then that's like the encouragement for you. Oh man, he's got a program. I think I can learn how to do this too. But this is one of these debates that keeps going on within music, because people want to believe so much that they can develop perfect pitch when it is not something that you can develop. And once more, what they should be doing is they should be working on the aspects of their musicianship that they actually can improve, instead of trying to sell out on this thing.
100%. So
it's
okay,
going to be such a benefit, and it's not even that big of a benefit.
Yeah. So you're a sucky salesman. You're not good at closing. You don't prepare properly, and many other things. Okay, so there are many reasons why you suck, but you're trying to get this silver bullet that is going to make you a super productive person, or whatever it is, right? Now beyond that, there's a tendency, for example, for people who don't understand just simple gravity, to want to buy books about quantum mechanics, for example, right? And obviously these are not books about quantum mechanics. These are books that popularize or try to explain, quantum mechanics. People are interested in frontiers type stuff. Okay, and if you ask them, well, how long does it take for a ball to drop if I held it up from 5 feet? They can answer that, but they're talking about quarks and gluons in the middle of protons and crap. But anyways, let us continue. He is talking about the eye of the storm, ladies and gentlemen. Things, and I want to see your take here, Dr. Thunder. The appropriate engagement aspect, we already maybe challenged it a little bit by saying that it is quite energetically costly, right? Now, sure, I can get into hyper spotlight or hyper beam or hyper laser mode, okay? And sure, I can just focus on this thing and then boom, be in the zone and get it done. But, I can't do that. I can't afford that. Okay. The machine is not that efficient. Now, I can work at my Zen Buddhism and monkhood and standing on a pin or whatever in order to get better at mastering myself. But even then, I know full well what the limits of that is. Okay. But beyond that, any reaction to what everything else he has said so far about this kind of appropriate engagement, and that there's a way of getting there somehow?
So this is interesting. So I do think that you can because part of what it is that he's saying sounds like probably some stuff I've said on this program about why a calendar is useful. But if you're addressing all the things that need to be addressed, you're accommodating all the things that need time. You know, you're placing them in a particular location, and then you're training yourself how to let go of stuff and just focus on the thing at hand, right? So that, you know, that I think that is possible to get better at that. You know, the whole mindfulness and being in the moment, eliminating distractions. You know, if you're trying to become, you know, if you know certain things are distractions for you, if your cell phone is a distraction for you, then, you know, don't have your cell phone with you. You know, I tell my students frequently to acquire dedicated devices. You know, there's usual sort of tools for practicing, like metronomes and tuners and, you know, video, you know, stuff to take video with. But, you know, your phone does all that stuff. And so what often can happen is, okay, I'm going to use my phone for all that. But, you know, your phone also has Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and text messaging and phone calls, and it also has all of that other stuff that can pretty easily pull you out of the zone. So some of that I don't think that there's necessarily a problem with the way that he's with aspects of where he's going. Some of it briefly sounded, until he sort of switched and said you can learn how to do this without the crisis. It sounds like you know, no junk, no soul, if you know what I mean. So there's this thing among, especially, you know, there was a disproportionate number of jazz musicians in particular, early jazz musicians that at one point in time were heroin addicts, or were alcoholics, or were, you know, were on coke. You know, I interviewed Paquito de Rivera, who was never an addict, but he was talking about in the 80s about how, I mean, and this guy's toured the world. He's played with everybody. He's household names, a bad dude. And he was talking about how, like, he'd go backstage and it was just commonplace for people to be snorting a line, you know, musicians, other musicians snorting a line right before they go out to the stage, you know. And I remember there's a book by the great pianist Kenny Werner called Effortless Mastery. And it's an interesting book because it kind of deals with some aspects of our conversation now, right? But one thing that he would talk about is how he was describing certain musicians. He was saying, you know, they were junkies, and they realized that if they didn't play really well and dial into the zone, that they might not be able to get a fix. And so that forced them into the space, right? So they had this singular focus on this goal because they had a need. They had an actual need, right? So there is that sort of, that does exist within the arts, and there's a lot of folks that abuse substances, womanizing, and everything else that they do, that is sort of compulsive behavior that if you just eliminated those pieces, they'd probably have to relearn how to locate the space, how to locate that point of focus, because they've been using these sort of mind altering substances and people and everything else to get to that zone or whatever. But yes, you absolutely can do it without the drugs.
So now you're coming along with him because you were thinking, okay, cool. So he's saying, I do need to, fabricate some kind of crisis, or is this only in the case
Right.
of in the well, I said, okay, cool. I can do it. It was interesting. Another point that you were making as you were going along about your phones and other ways of increasing your ability to focus, right? Ways of training your attention, if you will, right? In saying that, also a big part that people can you can even go down to the level of understanding that you want to get to the thing that forces you to click on the WhatsApp button, right? you get what I'm saying? It's like you're like, okay, there's a level of just keep WhatsApp away, but there's also something that causes me to click on WhatsApp, right? What is that?
Yeah.
And why? Let me get to that. And typically, it's because you're papering over some kind of anxiety, some kind of feeling, some kind of uncertainty, some kind of something. Okay, anxiety, doubt, whatever it may be, is typically what it is that causes you to go fidgeting, clicking, scrolling, and all that. So facing that, which is another, another storm with another eye, which is another way of getting focused, by the way, in your life, by fixing things as opposed to as opposed to breaking things, right? Rather than taking drugs or breaking things, you could just go and try to fix things internally, and that could inspire you, if you will. Let us continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Now, what do I mean? What is he doing? He's taking us to the capture part of his system.
Right.
Appropriate engagement is capture, right?
Right.
In other words, he's saying, look, you haven't taken the thing and put it into a system. What's that system? It's a list. It's a calendar. Okay. And if there's a calendar in a system, then you're not thinking about it. You just know that tomorrow the phone will go off, wake you up, and tell you what's on the calendar. And hence you're not having to worry about it. That when it's not in the calendar is when you're worried about it, right? So he is selling that peace of mind resides within, first of all, capturing appropriately the tasks that you need. Now, obviously, I'm projecting here or forecasting, okay? But I think this is where he's going. What are your thoughts? You think I'm right? Think I'm onto something or no?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's going down that path. A bit of a digression, but I think appropriate. So when considering there are better ways to sort of be appropriately engaged, or to try to get yourself focused in on things rather than drug abuse or something. John Coltrane is a great example of someone that was hooked on drugs, but replaced that with a deep spirituality. And so that's the sort of healthy way to do that. And he was just as possessed by that as he was, chasing drugs or whatever, more so, right? So there's that. And another thing is, often folks will use procrastination as a way to force themselves to the space or to the zone. If you wait until things really are urgent and then finally do them, it's dysfunctional, but it's a common thing that people do, and they won't even feel as though they can really be creative unless they have that sort of dysfunctional, last minute, if I don't do it now, then
what is your experience with
I'm
this?
not going to be able to pay my rent.
What's your experience with this particular mode? Have you ever experienced it? Because let me give my experience, and then maybe we'll clarify the question. Because you're saying using procrastination, okay? People procrastinating, and then because it's the deadline time, they're stressed. Now they're eye of the storm, focused. They get creative. They get it done. Okay. Now, the way I've experienced that thing happen, not by me purposely using procrastination, but finding out that I couldn't do something, I couldn't get this, just some things that I couldn't get done until just like the night before. Like it's almost like I just couldn't start doing it. And it wasn't a question of procrastination. It was a creative solution that needed to come out, right? In other words, it's not just I needed to put one foot in front of the other. There was some kind of creative solution that needed to happen, right? To something.
Yeah.
Okay. And it just, some of them, it's just like literally last night, okay, around actually early this morning, around 3 a.m. is when I just sat down in one sitting and it all just came out, right? So for a couple of weeks, I haven't been able to put pen to paper or whatever on this particular thing, right? But I'm like, okay, cool. I promised it. Let's do this time. And I took a nap right before it, and I was kind of just thinking about it and kind of folding, blah, blah, and then finally it just kind of came out. That's what I mean by experience with this kind of thing. So that's my experience.
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I think that there's like there's a happy medium. There's a happy medium between sort of being able to produce your best creative stuff and sort of finding the right whatever it is, circumstance, whatever it is that facilitates that perfect creative outpouring, that and just not being in control of your talent.
Yeah.
Right. So, and something that I talk to my students about, and actually I think one of the videos I have set to release, I've got short clips from my conversations with Dr. Thunder series that are releasing 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time through Friday. So each morning there's something there. And I think one of them, I talked about being in control of talent. It could have been the one that played today with the great pan flutist, and has perfect pitch, by the way, Damian Dragici. But we talked a little bit about the whole talent thing, where often is the case that people are not really in control of their talent. And so they have to sort of wait around for certain circumstances to arise before their talent can emerge. And I'm not going to say that this is a black or white issue. I think there's a lot of gray area there, but I think that we can be much more in control of those creative moments than maybe than we think we can be.
Yeah, I look at it. I look so clearly. I agree. Number one, and then one needs to understand very well the domains of control, or the domain of control that you have, and then the periphery where you're stretching, right? And where you're like, okay, and then in that periphery where you're stretching is where maybe you have to sometimes depend more on certain, I don't know, you have to, you stretch yourself a little bit. There's always a little drop of, I don't want to call it luck, okay, but you went in with faith for sure, right? It was not certainty. You went into this whatever venture with was, right, and you were able to pull that up. But that's like out there on the edge. But you're saying there's a big purview, a domain area where you should be mastering and controlling your talent, and I 100% agree. And you should look at it that way, as opposed to depending on the aligning of the stars every time for you to write any particular song. Everything's got to be just right, and it's got to be Jim Beam neat, and you got to get this drunk. And
then you start looking for the fun.
It's kind of interesting, by the way, and this is tangential too. Since you're talking about using of drugs, you're talking about music, you're talking about the creative arena now, okay? And the point that you just made is an interesting one about controlling of your talent versus depending on this, aligning of the stars. And when it comes to the world of the the creatives, there is a lot of there is you do come in contact with this kind of a problem more of people whom have the opportunity to lean on something that's kind of like style or soul or whatever in order to as an excuse for lack of technical proficiency or whatever. But that's a completely side.
I interviewed the great and legendary pianist Keiko Matsui, who has performed with everyone, Miles Davis, everybody. She's great, and she's also a very quite a prolific composer. And she will compose 100 songs for a record and just choose the 10 best songs out of that 100, and that's just a regular process she goes into. And we talked a little bit about how when I was a kid, up until a certain point, I actually would come up with songs when I was sleeping. So I was dreaming and I would hear music in my dream, and then I'd wake up and it'd be like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 in the morning. And then I'd go and I'd write it down, or sit at the piano and write it down. The thing is that stopped happening. Right. And now at first I was like, I thought something was wrong. I was like, why can't I think of anything now? Right. But I think, there's a passage in the Bible that, about being, about maturity and milk being for who milk is for, and grown folks eating meat, and all of that. Right.
Okay. Now, Dr. Thunder, look, what if there's somebody else who kept it? Are you saying that, they're still just a child? Are you this is a way of you nursing your wound and saying, I'm the grown one because I don't have that crutch anymore?
Well, what I'm saying is that, okay, so if we're going to do the spiritual thing, I believe that God is interested not just in inspiring creativity. That's important, but he's also interested in creating a level of maturity, so that you don't require him to be the person, the thing that is prodding you all the time. So he got the ball rolling, as it were. He created me. He gave me the talents that I have, or the gifts that I have, and I worked with those gifts to create talents from those. If he's constantly still holding my hand and just, here, I'm going to give it to you like this, as like manna from heaven, what happens to the children of Israel, right? They keep getting the same thing over and over. They start to take it for granted. Right? So you need to, I think, in my case, maturity was needed. And so that actually helped me to mature, to develop ways to compose music that did not require me to dream of a melody. Think about if I had to depend on, say if all I did was compose music for a living, that was the only gig I had, and I literally had to hope and pray that I would dream of a melody. and the deadline is approaching, and I still haven't heard anything, it just puts you in a quite precarious position. That's not necessary, you know.
100%. So being appropriately engaged with what's going on is where we are at with the conversation with regards to productivity that is stress-free. Okay, being in the eye of the storm while being calm. Okay, and in the zone, being in the space or whatever it may be. Let's continue. Takim, go ahead.
It's starting to sound like magic.
Sound like magic. What's the magical part? Go ahead.
You know, the thing like you'll once you do this process, you'll never want anything less, or you'll never do it anything less. I'm calling cap on that. I just I don't think that there is a sequence or a series of things that you can do that now are the prevention. They prevent you or will prevent you from, backsliding, right? And this is interesting because it's a little bit of the conditional salvation versus once saved, always saved sort of debate that happens within Christendom, different streams of Christendom, where some believe that if you earnestly believe, then you'll be saved, right? Others believe that no, you have to pursue to the end and then you'll be saved, right? And then some say, well, if you were actually saved, then you won't backslide, right? And so it's just a bunch of convoluted stuff. I just don't think that, and by the way, I think it's obviously possible for people to backslide. I think you can be very much sincere, well-meaning, and still backslide, because there is such a thing as gravity, right? There is gravity. There are things that are trying to pull you down. It's not like you're on easy mode now because I did the perfect sequence. I hit the perfect sequence on my controller, and now all of the easy stuff is unlocked for the rest of my life now. Yeah, I just tend not to. I'm calling cap. I guess Ike is somewhere else right now. I guess he thought I was going to talk for a long time. But anyhow, yeah, I mean, I think that I think that you don't. I don't think that there is a something, a magic pill that you can take that eliminates the possibility. Eliminates the possibility of you, like I said, backsliding. Now, A Hill asked a question. Let's see here. Question was, how does improvisation happen? Is it cumulative language? Maybe I'll try to answer that question while we're waiting for Ike to get back. So improvisation, cumulative language. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. I would say that improvisation is conversational. If you take the word improvisation and sort of break it down, it would be spontaneous composition. Spontaneous composition. And I'm spontaneously composing right now, actually. Right. I think there's a lot of analogies appropriate between conversation and improvisation. You're saying language learned and expanded through conversations over time. Expanded through conversations over time. Yeah. Well, I think I get what you're saying, but like I said, the language analogy I think is great. You know, people always say music is a language. You know, and when I'm trying to express an idea, a thought, I'm not concerned about the sort of syntax or grammar and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying what I'm saying. But if I have good control of the language, then the way that I speak will be, you know, it'll work. It'll be clear. It'll make sense. I'll have good control of those components. To the extent that I have that, it is helpful. Will make my communication clearer. Right. Did something crash on you?
I think it was a forced restart. Like it was like the computer was like, "Oh no, you have to now. You must." Well, I'm not sure, but yeah, it all kind of just locked down. Thank you for holding it
I'll
down.
tell you the plus of in you know, I use Ecamm Live, but if my computer crashed if I was on Ecamm Live, then the stream would be over. Whereas using StreamYard, your computer can actually crash and you're still actually live. So once you log back in, you just, you know, continue on.
Indeed,
like we're doing right
and
now.
Gentlemen. Indeed. So yeah, you guys are talking about improvisation and language and whatnot. You saying that this guy basically is getting into woo territory a little bit. You're saying he's getting it sounds a little bit by magic. Did you explain yourself with regards to that already?
Yeah, just the magic thing. Did you hear me say the thing about
If you said it already, you don't have to say it again. I'll just keep playing it.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Oh,
I think I just think this guy has maybe that's how it worked for him. Maybe, but maybe it worked that way not for the reasons that he thinks it worked that way. You know, maybe so maybe he thinks it's the process that pushed him to that. You know, the 100 hours, 100,000 hours, or whatever it is that he said. You know, that pushed him to that. And maybe there's some other accompanying detail, right, that he's just not aware of. And so that worked for him, but maybe it's not going to work for you that way. Maybe you're going to have to fight gravity harder for some reason. So anyhow. So sorry.
The billionaire is coming down and telling you it's the croissants. I had croissants every morning. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so this is interesting. Okay, so one challenge that I've faced frequently, especially working in Black churches, but especially a certain kind of church, the sort of more the less liturgical, right, the sort of low church, as it were. One challenge has been this sort of rub between being spontaneous and being prepared, right? So in other words, we've been spending all of this time getting this music together for this service. And when is it appropriate for someone to just call an audible? Okay. Now think about this. Yes, Pentecostal. Oh, A-Hill. So
Now,
say
in
for
this
instance-
case, an audible would an audible be a change in the music or an absence, or what would this?
Well, you know what?
yeah.
I know that we've been rehearsing this for the last, I don't know, 2 months, because
But the
maybe it's
Spirit
Easter
told me
service or
this way.
something. You know, so I know that we've been rehearsing it for 2 months a particular way, but you know what? I just really felt the Spirit. And so, no, it's not just a matter of reprising, which reprise if you like. No, I know the production sequence, which is a locked form, and it's a machine, and it's not aware. So when you make those changes, it just keeps doing what it thinks you're supposed to be doing, what you told it to do. And you know what? We got dancers and we got synced video. We got all of this, but hey, you felt the Spirit. So what I'm saying is, now, so there's a few issues. One of the issues is, as you become more complex, necessarily you cannot just decide that you're going to just change something.
Mm-hmm.
It screws too much stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's one thing. Secondly, if you're the type that believes that there's a spiritual component to this, which of course I do. You're picking certain songs, you're picking certain things, maybe there's something, the sermon or something, and you're tying it together with the, whatever the central point or theme of a song is, or, whatever it is, you're doing this stuff in. You've been praying also, right? You've been praying for 3 months. And you got the, whatever, the word from the Spirit, whatever, 3 months ago. And so that's why you programmed this, right? So then you program the thing and you do, right? And then someone says, you know what, but I really felt the Spirit.
Yeah,
So-
the spirit is feminine. You can't stop the Spirit from changing its mind.
Well, yeah, right. That's pretty funny, actually. So, but my point is that I'm not invalidating that someone maybe feels like they're trying to be sensitive to the Spirit, but I was also trying to be sensitive to the Spirit 3 months ago, and believe that I was doing things the right way, picking things based on, prayerful consideration, rehearsing, folks, working towards a particular goal, which I believe to be purposeful, godly, whatever you want to say, a good thing. So how come is it that because it's in the moment, because now it's happening, that overrides 3 months of planning, which also was done prayerfully? And so my point is, of course, I love what I've tried to do is I've tried to create a dynamic where there's some stuff that we do that is set, and then there's some stuff that we do that is more open. So then more people feel like they can, but this is always like this debate though. It's like, but what if the Spirit is saying to do this and that? It's like, well, so basically what you're doing is you're putting more of an emphasis on in the moment than planning. That's what you're doing. You have hyper evaluated what's happening in the moment.
Yeah, because I can understand liking to do stuff in the moment, but making it, especially, but when it's a group effort, okay, okay, I kind of understand being like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna just wing this. Let's see if I can wing this little thing here or whatever, right? But when it's a group effort, making that the thing where it's like, okay, the thing is spontaneity. The thing is, what I just earlier categorized as a more feminine leaning type of energy towards why can't I change my mind? Why can't I be spontaneous, right? Elevating that in a group activity, which calls for hierarchy and order.
Well, I'll say. See, the thing
Go
is,
ahead.
is that it would depend if it was anything else. Say you've been planning for a meeting at your job, and they decide to call an audible. I don't know. Maybe it's the boss. Maybe it's whoever. They decide to call an audible. Hey, fine. But what I don't like is using God as the excuse.
Oh yeah, that's the
part that I don't like.
That is the bad behavior part. So number one, we've already said, bringing it in the group setting, and the only reason they can bring it in this kind of a group is because they use the word the spirit, right? The spirit to kind of express as an expression of my desires.
Right. But people are just not necessarily aware of that. And you have to grant that, because everybody's not at the same place, and they're not thinking. And they may honestly really believe that is what it is, and they might just honestly be in a certain, because it's always the same folks, or the same type of people, or the same people that make those decisions in the moment. It's always the same people, the same kind of people. So at some point you have to be like, how much of this is behavior, maybe just the way that I'm wired, the way that I tend to, whatever it is, or actually maybe I'm actually onto something, So I don't know. Just
so back to this issue here of the idea of you doing some number of repetitions, putting in 10,000 hours, turning on this auto mode, okay, or going on this kind of one size fits all, not considering your particular cross, your particular little issue, your particular weakness, your particular Achilles heel, right? And that is what it's going to be about. That your particular journey is going to be like 99% about your Achilles heel, or whatever it is, right? Not his advantage or whatever else it may be. That is key, and we're not deep into this yet, but let's hear him as he eases more into his calendar, his system. Okay, get it out of your head, put it down into a system, and let you do that. You're busy right now. You're moving. You're moving one office to the other. Other things are going on, and it's a Tuesday, and Tuesdays are crazy for whatever reason, right? How do you find the time?
Yeah, so okay, so my dad told me this, and I've held on to this. So we have this terminology, time management, and the issue with that term, that thought, that idea, time management, is that you can't manage time. As the saying goes, time waits for no man. Right? You can't slow it down. You can't speed it up. You can actually do nothing with time. Time moves if you do something meaningful or not. Right? But what you can do is you can control the events that are in your life, right? So rather than time management, if you think of it as more event control, right? So if you're in control of the events that are in your life, if you're calling the shots, if you're planning, if you're not relying on happenstance, right? If you're planning the events, then you won't be controlled by the events. You can either be in front of the 8 ball or behind the 8 ball.
How much skill has gone into the some of the juggling that goes on? The reason why I say juggling is because there's some stuff you throw out there into the future in terms of like faith, and you overcommit a little bit,
Right.
and then you you're not it's not what I mean by that. You're not doing it out of stupid faith. Like, you build a certain amount of, okay, I think I can
Right,
do
right,
this
right.
one, right? From past
Right.
experience, I remember this time that February of 2016. Okay, cool. I think I can pull it off again, right? Is that just a question of confidence? Because I think that people get hung up on that end too, in terms of the confidence to go out there and deal with the chaos. And also, some balls do drop sometimes, right? You will drop the ball if you put enough out there, right? You will drop
Right.
a ball, and it depends on what's the level of what's significant to you, right? For some
Right.
of us, dropping the ball maybe more, is like, okay, cool. But anyways, there wasn't a question in there or anything. I was just
Yeah, no. I think yeah, I think there is skill involved. I think there is the I tell my students that when you're getting started off, you have to say yes to everything. You don't have a choice. You're broke. You have no opportunities, you have no experience, nobody knows anything that you can do. You have to say yes to everything. That's your job, is to say yes. Okay? But what happens is, as you've been working for longer, now everybody doesn't get to the top of the pyramid, as it were, where they can just only do the things that they want to do, only do the things that only they can do. Everybody doesn't get there. But you can get significantly higher on the pyramid than just to be the person that has to do everything all the time that anybody says.
Mhm.
And the purpose of saying yes to everything is to figure out, do you have some knacks at some things? Do you enjoy doing certain things? There always is the thing where you never know where an opportunity will lead. If you say no, then you know where that leads, nowhere. But if you say yes, yeah, it might lead somewhere. So there's a possibility there, right? So I tell my students, you got to say yes to everything. But you get to a certain point when you have to start being more restrictive about that. And I will admit, and with folks that are multi-capable, like an Ike Ogiamian, or like a Dr. Thunder, or like and I know a lot of folks that are really sharp folks that have a lot of natural ability, very creative. It can be very difficult figuring out which things you should say no to. And then even when you know the stuff that you should say no to, it's really hard to say no, because you could do, I mean, man, I know I could really do a good job with this, or whatever it is, but there's only a certain amount of hours in the day, and you want to, at the end, you really want to do a good job for folks and X, Y, and Z. But you know, I can admit that there's probably a lot of things that I have said yes to that I shouldn't have said yes to.
You should have said yes.
Okay,
Oh man.
maybe I shouldn't have said yes to. However, you know, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still having a good time.
Yeah. There's some, you know, I feel like, you know, the old church from 10 years ago is called, they need you to do this thing, and then you're like, is that something else I can take on my plate right now? Like, oh, you know, something. Those things come up. Anyways,
somebody asked me to do, and it was a good opportunity to record some music for them, for like they do. It was like for a movie or something, or it was this orchestration, and then they needed a couple things for some, or maybe it was like for a jingle or something. So they asked me to do this thing, and I agreed to it. And they had a pretty strict timeline, and I was so busy that I missed the timeline. I missed the deadline, and they were really, really ticked at me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure that they'll never call me back. So that's a situation where, I should have said no. I should have said, please consider me for the next one. Here's the name of somebody that'll really nail that for you. That's what I should have done.
Okay, so a little bit more about time, and how to be. Sounds like you just need to chill. Sounds like a bunch of uptight people who need to be alone.
Yeah, be fair. You do have the guy on what is it, 1.25 or something, or 1. What is it? You have it split up a little bit.
Oh yeah, no. And I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the people who are complaining about,
right.
Being overwhelmed and stuff like that. They just need space to think. I think that people overcommit. He's right. You were saying that, right? And people overcommit in certain other kinds of ways that I find interesting. Take, for example, people complain a lot during the holidays about going places they don't want to go see people they don't want to see, and many things like that, right? And I often wonder if it's that bad, why do it? Or so a lot of times, usually like 60% of the times, it's just that it's not as bad. They just like to complain, right? But then sometimes they're committing to go to everybody's freaking potluck, right? Because they like to go to everybody's cubicle and yak it up. And now they're overcommitted, okay? And that happens a lot to people where they're overcommitted socially. They're overcommitted to have lunches with people. Now they don't have time to work after. They're saying things like, I don't have space to think. Just means you got people. You got too many people in your ear. That's what that sounds like to me. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, spoken like a true introvert. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to get alone with your own thoughts. You just have to, but you have to actually do something with them. Because okay, I spent, sat by myself. I don't know. I'm all about. Yeah, I see the merits of meditation. I see the merits of prayer. I see the merits of, getting some alone time, and obviously when you're trying to do something creative, you have to do it alone, right? So that's kind of the way that works. So I'm all about that. But I'm more about actually doing stuff. One thing that you'll hear people say is that you should always pray before you do something. Now, I understand what they mean by that. You don't want to make a decision where you haven't consulted, your creator. You want to see if this is actually a good idea for you to do. Whatever. Okay, I get that. I'm not belittling that. I think that's, of course, very important. But some stuff, in my mind, some stuff you don't need to pray about because it's obvious. It's either obvious or maybe you don't actually have time to pray. There's some stuff that you just have to decide right now. And then there's other stuff that this thing could actually be the answer to your prayer. So why are you praying about it? This is the answer, right? So I'm an action-oriented kind of person, and you're going to make mistakes and you're going to do things wrong and everything else. Again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't pray. Praying is great. I pray. I pray about a lot of things, but some things it seems to me that you don't need to pray about because you already know the answer. It seems to me that you pray because you don't understand something or you don't know the answer. If I've already sort of been given permission to do something, I don't need to ask again. That's what I'm saying. So I'm an action-oriented person.
Indeed you are. Now let me ask you this: is that something that you've always thought of yourself that way, or did some people have to come and tell you like, wow, you're an action-oriented person in terms of your history?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, Nike, just do it. That's right. Nikeo, the Greek word for dynamite, nuclear. But what was that? Was a brain fart. What are we talking about again? Oh no, you asked me if I was an action. If people had to tell me
thought yourself that, you're like, you're out there doing Dr. Thunder stuff. I don't know, you're 5 years old, whatever. Did people tell you or whatever it is that you're this way, or you always kind of just saw yourself as more like, oh, I'm an action person. I noticed that about myself, that kind of thing.
Well, I just was always doing stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was just always doing
that'll.
Yeah, I was always doing stuff. I wasn't sitting around. I was.
That'll do it. Interesting.
I was constantly doing things, and that's where I feel. Honestly, that's where I feel at peace.
That whole. It's interesting, and the reason I ask is, I actually never quite noticed, or I actually don't really think that I do much. Right now, people around me.
Right. That's a good point. I don't really think I do much either. But if you compare how much stuff that I do compared to what most people do, then it's like, oh, I can see why you think I do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, because people around me say, "Oh, you would say you're crazy if I say that, like, oh, you don't do stuff like, oh, what are you talking about? You're always doing crap, right?" But all that is interesting. We have hit the hour and a half mark, okay?
Yeah.
And maybe we'll do the rest of this video next week on Getting Ish Done, okay?
Yeah,
but
I like that idea.
As we land the plane here, this guy started out with some Zen type stuff about being in the eye of the storm in a moment of crisis where his senses were called to a peak, if you will, right? And he was in the zone there when he was having this boat situation and he saw the moon. Okay. And he said, you can get this without having to be in the crisis. And you said, hey, so far it's Dr. Thunder approved. Check. Okay. And then he started describing the means perhaps by which you can do this. And you say, no, individual issues. Okay. Right. This is not generalizable and it's not a crazy little repeatable program. It's not a get up and hit this, hit the floor 6 times, repeat, or 10,000 hours, or do it 11 times to make it a habit, or whatever it is, have this particular password in order to just now manifest your best life. That's where he lost you, Dr. Thunder. But then he got you again on the aspect of engagement with the task, that taking it and putting it into a system, taking it and putting it into a calendar, okay, removing it from your head, putting it into a trusted system and getting it to work, doing action oriented. In other words, I think that's a good part of this. But anyways, you've been I've noticed you've been playing some Premiere videos. Do you know which one you're going to be playing this Thursday on at 9 o'clock?
Oh yeah. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my archived episodes of Thunder's Thoughts, and I'm going to post it on my community tab, take it out of the members only status, and so that'll be cool. It's probably maybe it'll be one of the episodes you and I did together. There's that remember we did that episode on what is it, the something crisis, the self-esteem crisis. Yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah, but my mic was all messed up on that one, wasn't it?
Was it? Okay, well, I'll find one that makes sense.
Had the African mic going.
Yeah, right. And really, the only problem was that the USB cable wasn't plugged all the way in.
Yeah,
which is what we found out later.
We'll see how smooth my my transition will be this time, or how because the houses are built with concrete. Everything's concrete over there, so the sound, anyways, we'll see.
Yeah, just make sure you have that good the proximity effect, and that you can warm the room up. Just gotta eat the mic. Yeah, baby.
Have the gain up a little bit. Oh no, not necessarily. No.
Right.
Yeah, so you're gonna check out Dr. Thunder's channel, okay? All right, he's gonna be dropping a premiere video, okay? And while this gig, by the way, that you have, is there something that if people are in the area, is it like a private gig, or is it like can people get tickets to it? Or
yeah, actually they can. It's at the Palace Theater.
Palace Theater.
Palace Theater in Columbus, Ohio.
For you Midwest
I'm
people.
playing with Johnny Mathis, the legendary
Johnny Mathis, and Dr. Thunder in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, so that's gonna be very cool. It's the first time I played this particular show, and so I'm really looking forward to that. And then Sunday, of course, Case Closed. And I was gonna send you a message about this. I think the show should be on the Roe versus Wade thing.
Yeah, that one is just kind of like, I'm so crazy busy right now that there are a few things that I'm gonna take a long flight soon, right? A few things I'm downloading some videos, an audiobook or whatever. Gonna chill, I'll probably make a video. Like I have all this footage, by the way, all this travel footage that I need to make video. I need to make like little clips, and I think I will finally this time just use this, not doing a lot of live broadcasts, but just send out these clips. But yeah. I will do my research on what and well, you know what? I mean, why not? I mean, that is the show for these kinds of topics, and this is the time to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the topic because you know, a bunch of folks have, you know, jumped on and started talking about it. I even did a live stream this morning on the topic.
Why don't you like black women, Dr. Thunder? Your mama black.
that show was called here's why the civil rights leaders would be celebrating the overturning of Roe versus Wade. So if folks want to hear that, we want to go check that out. That was up this morning. You can see that. But I think Case Closed, I think, is going to really be the place to really hash that out. I think if we get the right panel on that, I think it'll be right interesting. I actually asked Bernard.
I will be in Africa. We'll be the undisclosed location and
bunker,
bunker somewhere, and holding it down. We'll see.
Yeah, well, safe travels, and you know, see you on Sunday. We'll 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be on my channel this time, and so that'll be cool. And then Ike is going to be you're going to be overseas for what, a month, a couple months?
A month, 5 weeks.
Okay, all right. So you know, make sure you come back to check out some of Ike's African struggle streams.
Indeed, my struggle streams from dusty balconies.
All right.
All right then, ladies and gentlemen, we are out. We are gonna end it just like this.